I'm again here at the bottom bar of the Prince of Wales Hotel at the book launch to Anne Witherall's Fly book about the 80s Melbourne hardcore punk and squat scene. And I'm talking to a few people tonight that were around at the time, and sitting next to me I've got David Ross from Melbourne skate thrash band Civil Dissident that put out a few records in the early 80s through the mid-80s. And I just wanted to ask Dave about his recollections of the Melbourne hardcore punk scene with your time in it, Dave.
Sure. I guess one of the things that stood out to me was the fact that it was a group of people who were a bunch of individuals and yet came together because they had a common purpose. And I think the thing that was true of punk, not just within Melbourne but all over the world, is that people who didn't feel like they fitted into other parts of society actually felt like they had a home. And so what we ended up with in Melbourne was this collection of all these different houses that made up a community all around Melbourne.
Oh, yes.
There was the Depression scene, and they had their group of friends.
Yes.
Civil Dissident, Society's Victim, Mad Flowers. We had our own group.
You were also you used to play with End Result, Paul Conroy's band.
I didn't.
A little bit. Or play gigs with them.
We were very close. So I think that's a good example of another little cluster where End Result and Civil Dissident, we identified with each other's values and we were good friends. And, there was a lot of infighting within the scene. In true punk rock style, people stood up for what they believed in, and they didn't necessarily agree with each other. And you know what? That's okay, even 30 years later, because the essence of it was about people standing up for themselves and what they believed in and being themselves. Because
there was a Depression gash permanent damage scene, yeah, you're right, and then there was the Death Sentence scene, Death Sentence and other bands, and then there was Civil Dissident, Mad Flowers, End Results sort of scene in a way, and then I guess another scene was I Spit on Your Gravy that were based in Ackland Street down here in St Kilda. But did you enjoy your time in that scene, drumming for the great Civil Dissident? Did you learn much from that experience and take much away from it that shaped your future life?
Absolutely. I think for me it was pivotal in terms of how I developed and grew as a person. There was that period of time where I was introduced to a whole lot of new ideas. 30 years later, I'm still a vegetarian. A lot of the things that I was introduced to in the punk scene still define me to this day. I still question things. I still look at things differently than what a lot of people do that I come into contact with. And what's special, fellas? 30 years later, all of the people that I connected with around the world, because I got to travel and see lots of bands around the world in the mid-80s, we're still friends. The connection that was really strong then is just as strong now, because what we had back then was so special, and we realised how it's really translated through our lives, irrespective of where people have ended up.
Yeah, and let's just quickly talk about one of the songs that I remembered quite vividly from the band Civil Dissident, Memories of Menzies. Just tell us about that song.
Well, Matt wrote the lyrics, so he's probably a better person to ask. But if you look at what happened with the White Australia policy, it's not that long ago. We're a very bigoted country. And I think the idea there is to say, let's look and remember at what happened there and make sure that we don't make those same mistakes.
Just one final question. Civil Dissident were influenced by American hardcore thrash and American skate music. I mean, one of the only two bands in Melbourne in the early 80s that were influenced by that type of music, from my recognition, was really Death Sentence and Civil Dissident. I mean, and that was okay. I mean, you still had Australian lyrics like Memories of Menzies, but you were influenced by, Minor Threat and the Discord Records label and that. I mean, was that your first love when Civil Dissident formed? And, you put an Australian bent on it and you had Australian lyrics, but were all the members of Civil Dissident influenced by Discord Records and what Ian did in Washington, D.C. as far as in the very late 70s and early 80s?
To a small degree, I have to say yes, because Minor Threat were a huge influence on bands around the world. Yeah. But I think the Civil Dissident, the thing that made it unique is we had people from all different experiences. Like we had Wayne, who came from a rock background. Tracy had played in various bands, underground bands within Adelaide. If you listen to Civil Dissident songs as far as drumming goes, my influences were bands like the Sunny Boys and a lot of non-punk bands, and when you put those ideas together, we came up with something that was, quite ourselves. We certainly weren't as directly influenced by American bands alone. It was certainly a collection of a whole lot of other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, it's been great to talk to you, Dave, from the mighty Civil Dissident, and I know that over the years...
We're not a skate thrash band, okay?
Sorry.
We had a song called Don't Label Me, and that was one of the earlier songs, and it didn't matter. Like, we just played punk music, and the thing about punk music is that it evolved continually. And when, I don't know if you've seen the US Hardcore movie, and that really talked about the style of music that came out of the influence of Reagan and economic depression in the US and so on. The energy and the speed really influenced. We liked that energy and that style. And all those bands in America were massively influenced by the Ramones. So it's the evolution of that sound.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Because, Depression were influenced by UK punk, whereas you guys were influenced by American punk. But both bands wrote, the Australian lyrics and all that kind of stuff. So, and I know that over the years, some of your stuff has been re-released on vinyl, so and probably on CD. So, go and check them out. It was really short, fast songs and a bit different to what a lot of the other Melbourne bands were doing in the early 80s here in the hardcore punk scene. So thanks very much, Dave.
Cheers. Just